Oh my God, what are you doing, dude?
Here it is.
It didn't have the pop that I'm used to, so that's kind of interesting. Those are not the tires that I had on it. Yikes, I think I'm a little scared right now. I don't know, I'll get Rich involved and I'll call Andrew with CSP, and but I got some major concerns now with this car. What a disaster. Buying back my C8 sure did suck. This was not a video that I thought I would be making for you guys. Buying my C8 back 1 year later has been nothing but a disaster. A disaster from dealing with the person who I had to buy it from, dealing with transport, dealing with UPS. Everything about this purchase process has been a disaster, and it's absolutely shocking me because I've dealt with this stuff for 23 years. But it's not that big of a deal because it's stuff that I have dealt with for 23 years. I just wasn't expecting it. And when you don't expect something to happen, that's when it gets to be very troublesome. And I looked over the car a little bit, but after I showed you guys in the last video of the noise from the engine bay that I heard, I got very worried. We looked over it a little bit, and after I started looking over the car, like just a few minutes, I had to stop. I couldn't do it anymore. I was getting frustrated. I couldn't believe that in 1 year and less than 4,000 miles that this car has been absolutely trashed. All right, I have the key and we're going to go assess the damage on this vehicle. And I want to talk about these comments right here. And you guys thought it was silly of me to go out and buy this car without inspecting it. Well, I was in southern Utah at the time. The car was in northern Utah. While I was in southern Utah, I got hurt from doing something foolish. So my goal was to get back here and to assess the damage of my leg. 2 doctors said that, hey, you definitely got an ACL tear. We need to get an MRI. The MRI proved that not to be right, which is crazy because I felt my knee pop, but it didn't tear the ACL. Thank goodness gracious that didn't happen. But so I didn't do that for that reason, because my number one concern was the health and to make sure that we got back here to run the business as well. Let's check this out. So the first thing I noticed is the car has been lowered. That is absolutely the worst thing you can do to the car. I'm not a fan of lowered cars. They ride like crap. And generally speaking, when you start lowering cars, things rub. You can see there's not much room here. That means that the panels start getting misaligned and stuff like that. And then I noticed that there are wheel spacers on here to push the wheels out. Why did we put wheel spacers on the car? I mean, that's absolutely insane. You can see back here that there's a nice big wheel spacer back there as well. Now I want to add that when I had a conversation with the person I sold this car to, verbatim said, hey, I've only put a few thousand miles on it. It's in the exact same condition as what you bought it, minus the upgrades that he did, which the upgrades that he told me he did, we're going to get into a little bit more, because I was going to do those upgrades before I sold it and I didn't. So I told him that that's what he needed to do in order to get this car rolling with no issues. So saw in the last video that we have Toyo 𝘊𝘳 drag radials on here. Don't want them, don't need them. When I hopped in here, this really pissed me off. You can see the center console right here is all messed up. Like, how did this happen? What is on here that made this leather like buckle in? So we're gonna have to get that replaced. I've already got that ordered. Not that big of a deal. I'm a little analytical, but that's why I have nice things. But you can see how dirty it is in here. Absolutely pigged out on the inside of all these seams. And you can see how much dirt is up here and up here. And I'm thinking the way this looks is it has spent the entire year outside. At this point is when the car was backing off of the truck, and I noticed a sound coming from the left side of the engine bay, the driver's side. And I literally shut this camera off that I'm recording on, hopped on my iPhone and took this video you're about to see and sent it to Andrew, because this is a bad noise and a major concern. Now, I haven't started this vehicle in a couple days, so let me show you what else I dislike about this, and then we'll start the C8 for the first time in a couple days, and see if that noise is still there. All dirty right here. I can't tell. Yeah, it is. It's the clear coat peeling on the carbon fiber trim. So very expensive to replace that. You can see how dirty it is over here. There was a bunch of leaves in here and I took them out before I started shooting this, and I shouldn't have, and you saw I've got that off. So I was trying to figure out which turbo we put on here, and it's the Comp Turbo 6262 oilless turbo, and I've already got actually a brand new one of these coming, so that way we can get this thing running and driving and find out if there's anything else going on. The turbo blankets don't have any springs. There should be some springs on here to keep this turbo blanket on. And as soon as he bought this, he actually shipped it to Atlanta, Georgia to have a modification company down there do some work. And I'm hoping that's not their shitty work, because that's just absolutely insane if they did that and they didn't put the springs back on the turbo blankets. It's so basic that even I know to do that, right? And you can't see much of it right now, but you can see that there's a lot of moisture up here. And when we come to the front, you can see this is just absolutely moistured up. So there's something leaking in here that's causing moisture, or this carpet was wet at some point. So this is kind of moist over here. I just put my hand in there, you can kind of see it. So this is the meth tank. This is my fire extinguisher that I had with it, so that's wet. But we got to do the funnest part, and that's start it up. So we'll get that started, and it didn't start. But we got to do the funnest part, and that is getting this bad boy started up, and it didn't start. I know why. Oops, I forgot. Let me start it, and then I'll show you why it wouldn't remote start. God, I love that sound. I have missed it so much. So it did not start because we have check engine light on, and it won't remote start when you have check engine light. So of course, when I sold it, there was no check engine lights on. Everything was working good. So we got to figure that out. I put my Autel on here, and there's 31 active codes on this vehicle. So I have to figure that out, what's going on with all those codes. We'll get Rich involved, and we'll get Andrew with CSP involved, and we'll figure that out. I'll have to look back at the paperwork, but I sold this with like 31,000 some odd miles. So like I said, only 4,000 miles on it since I sold it. So 35,774 is the exact number. I'm also right now trying to put the car in launch mode, and I'm pretty sure I'm doing it right. I know it's been a while. So go up here, wheels straight, emergency brake to brake. Yeah, look, we're only going to like 1,500 RPM. That's not good either. I really hope there's nothing significantly wrong with this engine. I hope that noise is just the turbo. I'm really scared about this car right now. And out of this so far, this is my number one concern. My other concern is that we have smoke coming out of the oil catch can, and we also have smoke coming out down here. That's never happened when I had it, so I'm not exactly sure why that's happening. So we'll have to figure that out as well. So I'm gonna drive it down to the detail shop, and I have yet to drive this car, and I'm not gonna do anything crazy. Oh my God, it's not driving good at all. It seems like it's missing. We've already got somebody recording us. Love it. And see, that's what I love about this car. Like, it's just a white car right now, and just driving down the road, some kid randomly takes a video or a picture of the car, and I've only driven it 1 mile, and that's what's happened in 1 mile since I've owned it. That's what I love about owning this car, and that's where like the passion, the love, and just like the inside of me just feels like full now that I've got this car back. But we've got to get it cleaned up, and we're going to see if there's any more damage to this car. So back in 2021, I went to SEMA, and Datsun Clutch actually was not there. They only have one guy in the US for anything, and he's down in Atlanta, Georgia as well. And we were going to do the clutch upgrade over the winter of 2021 into 2022. And then I decided to sell it and regretted that later, a few months later. The guy who bought this actually did the clutch upgrade on this, so I'm really excited to, one, hopefully that's done correctly, and two, because this car is now pumping out low 700 horsepower to the ground. So this thing is much faster than a Z06. Obviously it doesn't have the sound of that flat plane crank of the Z06, but I really want to get this turbo fixed so that we can do it. And then obviously we're going to take these spacers off, because I don't like, even though it does look good, right? I like the wheels pushed out. I don't like how far that's out, and I don't want to put mud flaps on there. So we're going to take those spacers off the front and the back. We're gonna get this car lifted back up. I'm gonna take the lowering kit off, and then we're gonna get into our very first mod. I have a first mod that I think you guys are gonna like. What do you think it is? Let me know in the comment section, and let me know if I'm making a mistake of taking those spacers off and taking it back up to stock height. I don't think I am, but I'd love to hear what you guys say.
48 hours later.
We have experienced yet another problem and found another issue with the C8. You can see the frunk is open, and if you recognize that, that goes over the battery. Yes, the battery is dead after 2 days. It was kind of starting weakly, as in wimpy weak, right? When I started it, and I was kind of recognizing it, but I'm like, hey, maybe it just hasn't been ran for a while or whatever. But in 2 days, if it's died completely while it's indoors, 70-degree weather inside here, there's probably an issue. So within 3 years, we need a new battery, which is very wrong on this. So it just tells us the poor maintenance that this car has gone through over the past year, because I daily drove it when I owned it for 2 years. So we're going to get this bad boy jumped. And the other problem we found is this has been bashed in right here, and this has been busted right there. And now you see why I do not like lowered cars, because that, I guarantee, got lowered by hitting a cement park stop at a parking lot or a curb or something to that effect. Now that we've got the car started, we've got the car clean as well. This absolutely looks beautiful. Those wheels, so nice and clean. I love it. I did notice back here on the spoiler too that there is water pooling marks. That's why I tucked the seat off camera. So that means it was sitting outside and water would pool right there and just sit and just not taken care of one bit. Then the clear coat is coming off our Victor Racing. So I'm gonna reach out to Victor and see if he can help me out. And they have a new aero wing or active aero wing, so maybe we can put that on the car too as a future mod. The total assessment is getting pricey, as you can see, but we've got one more mod that's going to cost over $5,800 to bring this grand total to over $15,500.